Hello and a very warm welcome back to the channel. It's a very enthusiastic wave, Sam. I'm absolutely loving that. Today we're going to be looking at Alex Albon and the decision to put him in DTM for the 2021 season. As we know, he lost his seat to Sergio Perez at Red Bull for this year. He's going to be continuing on as the reserve driver at the team, but in his spare time, we don't know how many weekends he'll be doing in DTM, but he's going to be doing it over there. So what do we reckon about the decision, Sam?
Well, sorry, folks. For those that are a bit confused, we can see each other for the first time in about a year on the screen. We usually can't, so we're a bit giddy. Of course, Albon going to DTM. DTM standing for Down to Maraca. And that is, of course, what he's going to be doing for all his time.
All right, disclaimer early on into the video. It doesn't stand for that, but go on.
No, DTM, of course, the mainly German-focused. They essentially resemble GT3 cars. If you are unaware of DTM, but they are very good, very quick, very stable, and a lot of high-ranking drivers have spent some time in DTM. And you know what? It's incredibly different to Formula 1. I don't think it will give Alex Albon any practice or any ability gained for Formula 1 racing, but at least he's having fun. He's having a good time. So that's fine with me. I honestly think this is a bit of a kind of a graveyard for F1 drivers that are meant to be current. They're meant to be able to produce some results. And Red Bull have gone, we can't go back to F2. That would be embarrassing. Can't put them in the Super Formula because, no. So DTM, that's dying. So let's do something else with him. So honestly, I can't see his career really progressing being in DTM. I hope he goes and wins the whole bloody thing. But he's got no experience driving four-door sports cars. So I can't see it going well for him. It's nice that he's behind the wheel having a great time, though. Making lots of money driving cars. I wish it was me. I'm still jealous of him. Bloody Alex Albon. But it's not good for Formula 1.
I mean, they could have put him back in Formula 2. Like, some of the best drivers of all time have gone back to Formula 2 and won the championship, such as Giorgio Pantano. Moving on. You mentioned Super Formula actually in that, which is something that Pierre Gasly has done in the past, and they have used that for some of their junior drivers, so it was potentially an option. How are you surprised that they went for DTM rather than going down that route?
Well, I think it's because he's already been in F1, which is the issue here. For Gasly, he hadn't made it yet. He was just kind of stuck in limbo before making it to F1. I think it's a bad call. I think, as Sam said, in terms of driving skill, it's a completely different thing in DTM, so it's not going to help him advance, really. But I think it's good mentally for him just to completely get away from that sphere. I think sending him to F2 or any of the linked formulas would have been a bad idea. So I guess it gives him a chance to keep his eye in somewhat, even if it's not very relevant, and then just get his head in the right place and hopefully be ready to come back in 2022, potentially. But, odd one. Especially, as Sam said, it is very much a dying sport, sadly, DTM. We joked before this, there might not be any cars left for him to race. It might just be him and, I don't know, a Mercedes. And that. Yeah, Robbie Kubica. Oh, the jewel we never knew we needed.
Timo Glock will be there as well. He never leaves.
He never leaves. Absolute legend. All right. There'll be a few people he can race against, but it's. I was surprised by the call, but maybe it'll end up being a good one. But like Sam said, still jealous. He still gets to go and race cars and be paid for it, so don't feel that sorry for him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any problem in this, bearing in mind that many other reserve drivers do share their time with other series. You think Sebastian Buemi, of course, he's a reserve driver. He does Formula E and endurance racing as well, and he's not the only one. So I'm not entirely surprised that they've decided to put him in a series. I'm a bit surprised that he has gone to DTM. I've never really seen much of a link with DTM and Red Bull before. I suspected that they were going to do it with Super Formula instead, just because of what they did with Gasly, and you're right in what you say that Gasly wasn't in F1 when he did that series, but maybe this is influenced somewhat by by COVID-19 as well, in that, the Super Formula season, there might be a bit more uncertainty in terms of travel, in terms of whether they can get that series done or not. Obviously, it's taking place entirely in Japan, whereas DTM is more of a European-based season, so perhaps they have more confidence that if they put him in DTM, he's actually going to get some racing under his belt, and maybe there is that risk if they put him in Super Formula. But I think it's better than him doing nothing. Ultimately, the one comparison I would make here is with Antonio Giovinazzi, who, of course, at the beginning of the 2017 season, replaced Pascal Wehrlein for 2 races when he had an injury. Pretty much between that point and him making his debut at the 2019 Australian Grand Prix, he barely did any races at all. And I think he suffered because of that. And I think it took quite a while for him to get into his stride. And some would argue he's still not even into his stride now, 2 seasons on. So I think it is better that he is getting experience, even if it is, in terms of motorsport, it is 2 completely different ends of the spectrum. I think it's better him doing that than nothing at all. And we know that he'll still be there as a reserve driver on the weekends where he can be. So he's not going to be doing a full DTM season, which I guess puts any pressure of him winning the championship off the table as well. Maybe it is just a case of him getting that experience rather than him having to focus on a championship battle. Perhaps they think that's better for his development. It is not only Alex Albon, though. The other one to focus on is Liam Lawson. So Liam Lawson finished in the top 5 in Formula 3 last season, and he's also going to be doing DTM this year. Sam, because we've seen this with Yuri Vips as well, he went off to do Super Formula. Are you surprised that Red Bull seem to keep on shunning Formula 2 in their development for drivers?
I don't really get it. The amount of prime drivers that have come through that junior Formula system all the way through F2, and look at the ones that are on the grid currently. Norris and Russell are the 2 prime examples, but even those such as Hamilton, now the most accoladed of Formula 1 drivers, went through that. Well, it was obviously not Formula 2 back then, it was GP2, but it's still essentially the same thing. So I'm pretty shocked as to why Red Bull seem to veer away from this. And then, I guess maybe down to availability reasons is the option, but they have an F2 sponsored car, which is what's even more bizarre. Tsunoda has done very well in F2. He's really made a name for himself. People are aware of who he is now. He's got himself an F1 drive, and he's actually got quite a large following, even coming through the junior formulas. And that's what baffles me, that they're thinking, we're not going to put our much younger drivers back through this programme. And Albon maybe, instead of obviously going back to F2, which is very unlikely, it's almost quite degrading for him. If there was a seat available, might have found more home in maybe a Formula E seat if it came up for a season, or even an IndyCar seat if it came up for a season. At least that's open wheel. At least that's got the standard cockpit. At least the racing is relatively similar. DTM, I think, is a fantastic series. I really like DTM as a series. It's very similar to the GT3, the endurance stuff, and I'm a big fan of that as well. And I think you can transition easily from one to another. But Albon's goal is Formula 1. And I'm sure it's the same with a lot of the Red Bull Junior drivers who are in the open wheel category. So I'm really surprised that Red Bull are so comfortable in swapping their drivers' classifications around. It's not going to hone their skills into making them future world champions, I don't think. So for me, it's an odd choice. They must be getting something out of it. They must see some benefit, but I'm struggling to see what it is.
What do you reckon, Harry? Because like I say, we have seen this with Vips as well.
Yeah, I agree with Sam. An odd one. Have they got any junior drivers in F2 this year even, sorry? Do we know?
I mean, a lot of the seats are unconfirmed, but yeah, it depends what they're doing with Daruvula, I guess, if he stays in F2.
I was going to say Daruvula was probably the only one.
Yeah, it just seems like an odd one. They've had such a problem, a shortage, not a shortage of drivers. They've mismanaged their drivers, haven't they? But they've had an issue with drivers coming up through the ranks and being ready. So why would you not allow them to be as ready as possible by doing Formula 2? Because that is, the closest you can do to F1. Liam Lawson going off to DTM doesn't scream that they have much faith in him to be in F1 one day. I get the Super Formula 1, we've seen it like Gasly, so that could still work for Vips. But an odd tactic. They just seem to be scrambling around, don't they, at the moment, the Red Bull junior team. It's a bit of a mess, and hence why they've had to hire Sergio Perez for the second seat, because they need to sort something there for something that's renowned for being so successful. That program has got a few issues, I think.
Yeah, I think the most bizarre thing about this is that they literally have a case study which proves that it works in Yuki Tsunoda. Previously you had Vips, who was higher up in the, I guess, overall pecking order than Tsunoda, and they've completely switched around. And the one who's gone through the traditional route, going through F2, is looking pretty good, and he's gone up to F1 this year. The one who hasn't done the traditional route, he's going to be in F2 again this year. We saw him as a substitute for Sean Jalale at the end of last season. But it's completely switched around. So they literally have evidence of which one works and which one doesn't. And I'm not saying that drivers who go an alternate route shouldn't make it to Formula One. We saw Pietro Fittipaldi, who's done a very unconventional route, and he did a good job at the end of last season. And I've got nothing against drivers who might come up through Indy Lights and maybe even do IndyCar and then coming over. Got no problem with that at all. But at the end of the day, F2 is literally designed to be a development series. No other series in the world can claim that. DTM and Super Formula, Indy Lights, they'll all provide a good amount of experience for these drivers. But it's not experience with the Pirelli rubber that is so temperamental, as we see so often on race weekends, and it's not experience in terms of getting those overtakes done. It's just, that's what F2 is there for. It is a development ground, so you might as well use it. And yeah, it really confuses me why so many of these drivers Red Bull have in their program, they just decide not to put them through it. Just look at the likes of Charles Leclerc. He did the traditional route. I'd say it's going pretty well for him. George Russell, he won GP3, GP2. He's doing very well for himself. Lando Norris, exactly the same. So I don't know why they keep neglecting it. I think for Albon, it's a good decision to put him in DTM. He might as well. He's got nothing to lose. For Liam Lawson, I really think he should have done a season in F2. And I think then that's where we'll leave it for this one. So, Sam, if you wouldn't mind getting us out of here.
Well, folks, if you'd like to give us your opinions on the racing series down to maracas, then I would very much like to hear it. If you're going to be serious about motorsport, again, get down in the comments. Let us know what you think of Albon's move to DTM and how he'll fare. Will he be able to bring it back? Will he have a successful career in Formula 1 after this? Or is this the slow and shallow downfall, unfortunately, of Alexander Albon? He showed a lot of promise. Really interesting to hear your thoughts. On another notice, hope you had a lovely holiday. We're back, of course. A new season is building towards it. We're in a bit of a tough time, of course, with everything going on with the virus. So stay strong out there. Get in the comments if you want any help. Pull together, chat to each other. We love you all very much. In the meantime, I've been Samuel Sage.
I've been Ben Hawking.
I've been Harry Eade.
And remember, keep braking late.